Tuesday, September 15th, 2015, with the legendary Jack Payne for the Nebraska Broadcast Association. I want to start with let's start at the beginning. You're a son of Oklahoma.
Yes, right.
From where?
Okemah, Okfuskee County, Oklahoma. That's in the east central part of Oklahoma. And the population in my hometown growing up was 4,001. And we could never figure out who that one was, but that was part of it. That was our population growing center. It was a great area for farming and cattle raising. And one of the things about the community, and I'll get the plug in here, called itself the world's largest native pecan orchard. A native pecan,
okay. Not
those that are planted and cultured and grown along like farms somewhere in Georgia maybe, but along the river bottoms and wherever they happen, the pecan trees grew. Oh, paper shell, they were just beautiful on that thing. Okemah, Oklahoma.
Right? Were they delicious pecans?
They were, that should say delicious. They were just Okemah pecans. I won't steal that name, Trademark.
What did your father do? What did your mother do?
My dad, I had 3 brothers and a sister. And my father was a pioneer. He came, my little hometown was founded in 1902. And then Oklahoma became a state in 07. And he came up from Texas. My mother came up from Mississippi. She was born in Elvis Presley's hometown in Mississippi. And anyway, they married and settled there in town. My dad worked as a laborer for the county out building the roads. And then later on, he got into law work. He became the chief of police of our town and held that job 5-6 years. Then I was born in January of 1923. And then I was 4 years old. 1927, my father became sexton of the cemetery in our hometown.
Okay.
And
is that a caretaker?
That's a caretaker.
Okay.
And he and the 4 boys went along with the trade, with the deal. They would often ask my dad, "What do you pay the boys, Lawrence?" And he says, let's see, he says, 3 square meals and a place to sleep. So that's what we got. But anyway, I was 4 years old when he went to the cemetery, and he retired from there in 1962. So you know where I spent my youth, all of my young upbringings. And at a reunion dinner we had with kids down there over the years in 1990, my young brother and I were co-MCs. And I told the people, I said that, at a very early age, Joe and I had the advantage of becoming well-educated kids. I said, we got doctor's degrees in geology and horticulture. Working that graveyard.
I can imagine.
They all knew what we meant.
Yes. So everyone's got their own story about what it was that inspired them to join this business, to get into this business. And when you were little, that's the beginnings of radio. And of course, a little bit later was the beginnings of television, which of course we'll get into in a little bit. I can't possibly imagine what it was like when when radio came along.
Yes.
What was it like for you the first time? Do you have a memory of the first time you heard a radio?
Not when I first heard it, but of course in the era of just being around it and over a period of time in my life and how it affected it. I was always attracted to it. I liked it. And I liked to talk. I thought, gee, that'd be fun, to do that. And I'd pick up the newspaper as a kid even, big newspaper, and I would read the news story, like they do on the radio, and the entertainment you come, listening at nighttime with the big bands where they go around the country, where you lie there in bed and you'd say, be part of that, just be the announcer, always to be the announcer. And an inborn desire very early in my life led to that. And And when I got to high school, I told my English teacher that she was asking about what you want to do. I told her my desires. Oh, she thought that was the greatest thing since fried rice, And so consequently, she put me in every play that came along in school. About 3 years in high school there, I was in all the plays and things. We did not have a debate team, but she would try to get me continually to be before the class and becoming at ease in front of people, reading something or talking about something. And she also encouraged me to keep on reading the paper. And then you get to where over a period of time you don't read the newspaper like you scan it, You read it and you come to a pause. And anyway, that's how I got started.
What was her name?
Ritchie, Joe Catherine Ritchie. Surprised I know it, aren't
you? Well, but someone like that, yes, I mean, that's someone who not only encouraged you, because I can imagine, a profession like that would be, that's just crazy talk, But she encouraged you.
Yes, yeah. She knew what I wanted, and she did everything she could to help in that way to go along through those years, And her name has always been up here somewhere, and it comes out when it's needed. But I took a lot of interest in radio stations and listening and what was going on in the world as far as radio was concerned. I would listen to all the shows of the 30s, the network shows coming on. Many music programs back there then, but no DJs. No. So everything was drama, whatever it might be. And I took that desire with me through the years and went up to University of Oklahoma when I was out of high school in 1940. And I'd like to go to Oklahoma, but I've got to have some help, and it's financially. So I went up and I said, they got a radio station. Let's go up there and see what I can find. I had gone to smaller towns around us down there that had radio stations, and the big thing they wanted was, as you probably run into yourself, John, go get some experience.
Yes.
Well, they're $250, so where do you go? Get some experience somewhere to work yourself up on the thing. And so I went up and I talked to this man. His name was John Dunn, and he was head of the drama department and the speech department at Oklahoma University. John gave me a little interview, and then I read something for him. And he said, Jack, he says, we look for more gifted people here, people from the drama school, in the business, he says, that can project and show emotion, in reading. And, oh, yeah, okay, fine, thank you. So I went up to a state college for 1 year, enrolled in the fall of 40. Went for 1 year. Then when I went through that year and came the next year, I switched over to Oklahoma because NYA, God bless them, they had the WPA then. The NYA was the National Youth Administration.
Okay.
It was one of those programs that took care of kids, young people. A lot of them are often in the forest areas and out in the hills and all working, cutting timber, building bridges and roads, something to give them a job, keep them going. Well, through the NYA project, I got a chance to go to Oklahoma. And I went back up to WNAD and to get an interview. And lo and behold, Mr. Dunn was the gentleman still in charge. He did not recognize me. I had gone up there in 40, within the war years, and I came back in 46 and started back to school at Oklahoma. And on that end of the time, naturally, he probably wouldn't remember me, but she didn't. And he sent me in, audition, and he said, "Are you enrolled here at the university?" I said, "Yes, I am through the NYA project." He said, "Well, I like your voice." He says, "You read with enthusiasm." He says, I think we can use you here." So he hired me. Yeah.
And your first professional job?
Professional job. I made 75 cents an hour. I think I was overpaid when they were coming down. But that and my GI money I had helped us along, Connie and I, and the family, going to school. But that's the upshoot is the same guy that turned you down before took you on when he came back.
I want to backtrack real quick to your teacher. Did she ever get a chance to see you realize what you had become? Do you remember the last time you interacted with her?
No. Let's see. Now that would be, I would be out of school. I never had any more association with Richie after that.
I didn't know if she'd ever had a chance to hear you or see you.
She may have had, the radio down there, but never communication, person to person on the thing.
Now, when did your Air Force service? When did that come in?
That came in 1942.
Okay.
In October of 42, I was in the ground crew, did fly, and got out in 46, February 46. And in the interim there, I had met my wife in Dayton, Ohio, and Connie was a member of the Royal Canadian Air Force, and her detachment was there in Dayton. The organization I was with was there in Dayton. We all were based in the same big building downtown, at the bank building downtown. We call it United Nations headquarters. All the allies had groups there, and you saw people from everybody on our side, and you'd meet them all over. We liked the Canadians. We heard that they gave good parties, and we tried to, my friend and I, position ourselves in the elevators when these girls were coming up and down the elevator, and we were invited to come up to their detachment and have a cup of coffee. And I was told after we went up and left, one of the girls later told me, says, Jackson, when you guys left that day, went back downstairs, she says, Connie looked over at me and says, I want him. She got me.
So you married a Canadian?
Married a Canadian, yes. And then we finished there. She went home, got her discharge, and I got mine, and we went back to my hometown in Okima. And therein I found out that one area in which I was not cut out to be in was a retail business. But the man running J.C. Penney Company hired me on. See, all this time, I'm thinking radio.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to think. And I then ventured over to a town near us, Okmulgee, Oklahoma, and tried to audition the radio station there. And let's go get some experience, Okay. And so the fact is, we went ahead, and I had a great career down there, and I loved every bit of it. And went to university, working for WNAD. It was daytime only. Okay. And after I'd been there for a while, Mr. Dunn called me in one day and he said, I like your sports background. And he said, you come across real well. He said, you know anything about football? I said, yeah. That's the famous thing to remember. Yeah. And so, okay. So he put me up in the stands, ran the wires from the transmitter room down the side of the old building there at the football field in Norman, up in the stands, and I had a clipboard of a Husker of an Oklahoma practice session. And he listened to it, and he said, well, we're going on the air Saturday. So I went on the air. My first football broadcast I ever had was between Oklahoma and Kansas State. So I didn't start with the high schools,
You started at the top.
up yonder. And then came basketball season. And you know anything about basketball? Yeah. Okay, so we got permission. We were daytime only. So I signed off sundown. We got permission to come on the air for home basketball games. And in Oklahoma City at that time, Kurt Gowdy was doing the games for KOMA on the state.
He had just come from Wyoming.
Yeah, he was down there. And but then they put us on the air for the home games only, and our signal was real powerful. It was way down to the end of the dial. We just went skedaddling out across the Rocky Mountains, and there was a station or two in California that kind of didn't like that because we were butting into their signal coming in on it. But anyway, we got our message out on the thing, and that's kind of how everything got going, John. And ultimately, baseball. The old questions: know anything about baseball? Yeah. So I'd go out and sit in the bleachers, and I remember playing Nebraska. I became acquainted with Nebraska. Even I know while I was at Oklahoma, Nebraska would come down and play us, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Bob Serve and people like that, you know, would come down. Bob hit a ball one time up in the middle of a cottonwood tree in deep center field. I said, man, that's terrific, you know. And he went on, of course, you know what he went on to do. And the significance of getting a chance to do what you really wanted to do, to have some satisfaction with it, was what paid off in my mind to keep going on the thing. And you did everything, as you probably know. Most people
you did more than I
know. And Ponca City had a big parade, you know, as part of their state there, opening of the Cherokee Strip up there. Horses, just a parade. Bands in parade, horses. So Mr. Dunn says, Jack, we're going up and do the parade. Okay. What which end of the horse, you know, was going to first. So anyway, we went up on that, and I broadcast the parade, and the governor of the state wrote the station, thanked them for our being there, you know, and how well they thought that the show went on the thing. And I said to myself, I says, please, Lord, don't ever have me do this again. Oh, I never saw so many riding clubs in my life. But the little town I was from was famous for athletes and rodeos and things of that nature. So I was not immune to it. Just having seen a little bit of it, you know, you can grip it and grab it and hang on to it. I'd like to go back to an instance that when my father took over the graveyard.
Okay.
Oh, and that was in the late 20s and on up into the 30s. Well, we would spend a lot of time up there, and they got mowing machines, power mowing machines, to cut the grass, you know. Otherwise, it got sickle.
Yep.
And being not overwhelmingly large, well, he was dubious in putting us behind these mowing machines, you know. But then finally graduated up to that. And I'd be going along, and just I don't know how it started, but I just got to where I'd talk to myself. I love sports, and I love football, and I'd start doing football games because earlier I had, every winter when we were home on Saturdays, and I would be down on my rug in my front room, and I'd have marbles. I had two different colors of marbles, one for one team, one for the other, and it's Kern Tips, great pioneer broadcaster in Texas. He was the Lyle Bremser of Texas. Okay. And Kern Tips was broadcasting, and man, I just loved it. And I'd take my hands, and he'd call a play, and I'd move with my hand. I'd couple of marbles. I'd move the marbles around, you know, on the floor, and I'd be talking about the teams going along. And then when I got behind the mowing machine, I started talking to myself and recreating ball games going along on the thing. And he came up one day, my father, tapped me on the shoulder, and I was a little surprised. I turned around. I said, "What's the matter?" And he says, "Nothing." He said, "But he said, who are you talking to?" And I told him, I said, "Well, nobody, Dad." I said, "I'm just practicing." I said, "I want to do this someday. I'll do this thing." Okay. So he started to walk away. Then he turned around and looked back. I'll never forget it. He looked back and he said, "Who won?"
Who was playing?
Yeah. Who won?
Who won?
Yeah. And, oh no, it was just great. And
did you when you did that first Oklahoma football game, did you? Because everyone, like for myself, I grew up listening to you and to Lyle, and then later to Kent.
Sure.
And so some of the mannerisms and the things that you say, maybe not like the catchphrases, but just the way the game is called is kind of influenced from your early. So as you're out there pretending to do games while mowing, did you kind of fall back on some of that stuff as you called your first actual game on the air?
No, I don't remember that. The style is what you're speaking of?
Yeah.
The style of the thing. I just sort of made it my way, the way I wanted to talk about it. I knew I could, in my mind, I knew how they did it, and that would constantly be there. How are they doing this? How would they describe this? Then you kind of picture it up a little bit, and once in a while you'd find. I know Kern Tips had an expression, and he'd talk about someone would be hit near the sideline, knocked out of bounds, and he'd say he goes roly-poly out of bounds, And once in a while, they get a roly-poly in there, come down the thing. But as far as the style was concerned, you just sort of patterned it after the way you want it. I guess that's the way it was. And I'm just so thankful that I got the opportunity to just work it up with OU like that. And then when Tip Sago was on WOW, sportscaster here, he went with the American Legion to help run Dodge Street down there, run one of the places down there. And that opened it up here. And in a roundabout way, word got down there that the opening was here in Omaha, WOW. And also along with it was the fact that television had come in 49, and this was 51. So I said, "Yep, I want to do it." I talked to Connie about it, and take the chance and go up and do it. So I drove up here with my wife and 2 children and a white cat who was deaf, and I didn't know that till we got in the car to come up here. And so we arrived in March, and driving up, we got to listen to the state basketball tournament. And Mr. Brimser was broadcasting, driving the deal coming up here.
Wow! And how did the word get down there? Did you have to compete for that job with other people, or was it offered to you?
I suppose there were others that were in the market. There was a fellow that was a graduate of OU in journalism, and he was up here and was working at WOW in the newsroom. And he was an athlete at OU, and he was a good friend of Harold Keith. Now, Harold Keith was the SID down at Pioneer down there, John, for years. And he called Harold and told him about the opening up here. So he knew anyone interested. Well, Harold liked me, and he called me and told me about this. How about it? And I made the contact. And then I came up here by myself and was given a tour of the station, and they listened to just a little bit of me in front of a microphone. And Lyle DeMoss treated me. He took me out to a steak dinner at Garot's, and never forget that. That was nice. And he just told me, he says, "Well, Jack," he says, "we've heard what we want to hear." He says, "We'll let you know one way or the other." So I guess it was maybe a couple of weeks later that I got the word that I'd been hired. I don't know who else was in the running or what was about it, but my foot was in there.
Your foot was in the door, and it hasn't left since. The appeal of television, was that a big appeal for you?
Sure it was, yes. Okay. Yeah. It was new, of course, and you could foresee the fact that, hey, that's big, it was coming. And radio had established itself. Now, here comes television. And you have the chance of continuing with what you've been used to with that caliber league of calling football games. And of course, the fact that you had to convince the local Cornhusker Nation that being a Sooner, how can you broadcast our game, and who are you for when we play them? And my expression was follow the money. Who's paying my check on the deal? Well, that grew up okay. That everything came along all right. I remember particularly Ad Lewandowski. God bless him, the university.
The athletic director.
Yeah, and I had a meeting with the coaches down there to a luncheon and thing. And he was talking along, and he said that, Jack, he said, we've had a chance to hear a little of your basketball. And he said, we've always been busy on our football, but he said, we've got a chance to catch your basketball game. He said, I like it. And he said, I like your style. I like the way you present it. So I thought, well, I got one vote. I'll never forget that. And afterwards, I was invited to come up, and I got the job.
Got the job, and so
time goes on, and TV was progressing, and I was in on the ground floor. And there's many times in that business at the start of it that, John, you could honestly look at somebody who's in there with you, and you could say to them, what do you know about it any more than I know about it? It was so new, Yeah. And they respected your attitudes and your ideas. Let's get in and go with this, We'll put it up the flagpole. Let's see if it'll work.
Right.
Let's go with it.
Because a lot of times we have the advantage of being able to hear people all across the country and see shows all across the country. So we can borrow, we call it borrowing and stealing ideas. But back then there were no ideas to steal. You weren't seeing anyone else. So when you walked into this television thing, where were your influences? What were your ideas as far as, we should try doing this, we should try doing that? Did it come from radio, or where did that pop?
Well, I think the radio background you have is a good fundamental of basic of what people want. And now, what can we do here to get this before the people? We tried several ideas for scoreboard, how to get the scoreboards up there. And I have kids that were working in the newsroom, learning the business, and were assigned over to me. And they're now went on to become very successful. Joe McCartney is one, and Bill Ramsey, another gentleman, were broken in under the boss here. And the ideas that we had, and the station would listen and, said, well, okay, let's try that a little bit on the thing. And it was, as I said, it was a creative era for television, and it never stopped on the thing. And I had a chance to be here I came in March, and Johnny Carson had applied for California, had gone, was getting ready to go, and he'd gone. It was WW, of course, TV and radio. But he came back, and Merrill Workoven, who was my guru, helped Johnny with his presentation and everything, get his stuff together. And when he went back out again, he never came back, he made it big out there. And Johnny was on the station, and there was a story about that. This WOW had started a baseball tour. Okay. We went to the big leagues. We went to St. Louis, we went to Chicago, and we would leave here. There was no Kansas City then, see. Mm-hmm. And we would leave here on Friday night on the Burlington, and they would go where we're going. We'd come back Sunday night. The people would come and from all over outstate and western Iowa and go with us on the tour. We'd have a full trainload of everything coming and going. And John asked me to come up and be on his show one morning. They were going to leave it Friday night. And I said, fine, thank you, John. Went up, and he said, now you don't know it, Jack, but he said, times have changed since yesterday. Instead of, you're not going by Burlington anymore. He said, you are going to leave by seaplane from Carter Lake. and Percy Ziegler, who was king of engineers and sound, and he said, matter of fact, your plane is arriving now. And they have the roar of that old engines, you know, the plane, and the sloshing of the water coming up out the Carter Lake out there. And we sat there and we talked about that and joked about it. And we got off the air, and we had 2 calls from out of state wondering were we really going to go by a seaplane. You know? People were honestly believing, oh, Johnny, you know, whatever he would say. Oh, that's fun and the thing. But working just through the years and working with people that you get to know and the problems you help solve when you work together, being compassionate with them. Had great people in the newsroom, Jim McGaffin, Steve Murphy, and Ray Clark, and then Bill McBride was up at television, going on thing. And on the air, you're sitting there and you know your competitors are down the street there with who they were with the Brokaw and those people like that, you know, went on up big time. And you were earning your keep or you wouldn't be there. That was the attitude I had to have along the way.
What was a typical day for you? Because back then there wasn't the half-hour newscast, was there? It was usually a little different, wasn't it?
Well, we had
at the beginning.
Yeah, we had the half hour.
Okay.
Yeah, we had the half hour.
Okay, so a typical day is you're getting a sports presentation ready. Okay. I mean, can you put me through a typical day of what it was like?
Yeah. Get up, and I would try to be down to the radio station by about 8:30 in the morning. And I had an assistant, you know, who would come on, kid would help me. And I'm getting radio ready, and also television. I was the only sportscaster in town that had radio and television.
Okay.
At the same time on the thing. And you're getting through the day, you're working if you want to go out and do interviews and try to get a film man to get where they can go with you and get them cleared because on priority, you were at the bottom of the pole getting a photographer.
Right.
Yeah. And then you go out on your story and you come back. And then maybe sometime during the day, they have worked you into where you get in and do a newscast, not a newscast, but a filler inside the sports show, you know. And then about the afternoon, you have to start thinking about your TV show. So from that point in the morning up till noon, and then on, and sometimes you went home for lunch, sometimes you didn't. And then would come the afternoon show, and you get off at 6:30. And if there wasn't a banquet to go to or something to go cover, a ball game or something, we went home, tried to see the family a little bit.
Yeah. Say
goodbye to them, go back to the station, and get home after your 10:30 closeout, and hope you're home by 11 or something like that. So that's around.
So it was like that for every day of the week.
Years, yeah. And my wife, God bless her, she raised our children. I mean, she had to, Jackie and Karen. And I wasn't there. And I had a job to do. And the kids understood this. And she understood it too. Mm-hmm. And we'd go somewhere, of course, we both were invited. And she'd always say, well, I don't know if I want to go or not. Says, everybody knows you. Nobody knows me. They don't know who I am, you know. But we had a wonderful relationship. 69 years. And enjoyed every minute of it. It was a picnic. She knew the business too, you know, and I got to doing as a sideline to it, John. I got to doing the PA at the College World Series, 1964, and Virgil Yelkin recommended me for that. I got into it. He used to be out in Omaha U, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. And then my last year was 2000. Well, the last year or so. She would every once in a while wonder when I'm going to quit. When are you going to stop? I said, why? Well, she said, I'm afraid you're going to say something you shouldn't. On the PA. No, I'm not going to try not to do that.
No.
But I thought, well, after a while, I thought, well, maybe she's right. About 2,000, I lighted that on the thing. But there was no, there's no, in sportscasting in the city then, John, I'd like to point out that it was a wonderful group of the 50s and 60s and early 70s in there. We had Brimser that was involved in it. Then, of course, I was at WOW, and we had Dave Blackwell over at Channel 3, Joe Patrick, and Jim King was on Channel 7, was a sportscaster there, you know, and others in our group who formed the Omaha Sportscasters Association. And we all got along just real well, and people with programs would come into the town here in the sports area and going to put on some kind of a sports event. Want to know about getting this group together and tell them about it, and this group together over here, this over here. So we'd say, well, why don't you just, if you want to, just get coffee, donuts out down there somewhere, and we'll all come down, sit around the table, we'll all talk about it. And they'd often say, you mean you do that together? They say, oh, yeah. We don't fight, you know.
Well, you were all pioneers together. You were all breaking new ground.
John, you'd have your story, I have mine. You're going to use yours, I'm going to use mine.
Right.
You know, sure. And it's understandable when they come in.
Completely.
Yeah.
Did your wife ever give you, because you said she knew what was going on, did she ever give you any ideas or critiques or criticisms of what you did?
The prime example of that came on my last show. I had been told...
Last one on Channel 6?
Last one on Channel 6 television show. I'd been told all along that you don't smile enough. You don't smile, Jack. Show your personality, smile a bit. Well, how many years have I been going along like this? Oh, Jack Payne, you know, and everything. Well, I'm going to show you what happened. I signed off, and in my farewell to the public and the people, thank you for everything, I did this. I said, now I'd just like to say out there that I want to thank everybody over the years for listening to me. I've enjoyed it very much, and thank you very much. And when I got home, I was met at the door. And I called, holy you know what, boy, did I ever catch it on the thing. Why did you do a thing like that? I said, well, I just told I never smiled. She says, Jack, she says, don't know. Oh, yeah, she's quite a gal.